Good morning, everyone. This is Miss T. Hope you had a good sleep and you slept peacefully. You woke up this morning in good spirits, had a talk with the Lord, and ready for your day. I have a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, but first, I wanted to straighten up some rumors or whatever you want to call them about me. I guess because I don't cam up or whatever, I might be a man. I didn't come on here to do any other thing than to spread a message. So I'm not concerned with what people care about, how I look or anything else. And if you've known me long enough, you know I do not conform to anything that I don't have any reason to feel bullied into doing anything that someone is telling me to do, or else, this whole thing is not like I'm trying to trick people or something, I guess. But that's just, like I said, that's just the devil who will throw things at you to try to get you off of what you're here for. And if I do decide to cam up, it will be when I feel like it, when I decide that, or I will never cam up. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I know who I am, and that's that. I mean, I'm not. You're not going to bully me into doing something just to satisfy you. I'm not a pushover. I never came on here to say I was looking for a relationship or a man or anything. There are a lot of beautiful women on this app. I'm sure some of them are looking for relationships, some of them are looking for friendships or whatever, but I'm not. So with that being said, you can either take that or not, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not camming up unless I feel like it. So what I wanted to talk about today, there's been a lot of talk in the news about race and things that are going on. This often comes up when something big happens that has to do with controversial sayings, like black people, towards black people. We had Kanye West spreading that black people like to be slaves or wanted to be slaves because they didn't fight not to be slaves. I don't know where he got his information from, or if he was just, some people just say things. I don't know, maybe just to cause a conversation or whatever. But if you go back in history, if you really go back in history, your history, not the history that they're trying to give you, the narration of the history that they've tried to tell. You can't tell our story, but you tried it. If you go back in history, you will know when they came over to, they had this ideal. Half of more than, I'm not going to say more than half, but a lot of the ones that they were trying to capture didn't even make it off their homeland because they were fighting for their lives. Nothing's new under the sun, so of course there were our own people who were helping money speaks. They they were giving them whatever they wanted, and they for the love of money and for the love of goods and for the love of power, they changed sides and they were selling their own people. Some of the people that did get onto the boats, supposedly, this is just our supposedly, because we can fight back and forth about who was here, who came here, and I'm not going to do that. But there were boats that were taken over by slaves and sailed themselves without any kind of knowing the distance or how far, but they knew they were going back home, and that's how much they wanted to be home that they chose to risk their lives taking over ships. There were people who were jumping over ships that they rather had passed away than to be taken. And so they were in constant thinking of how to get away from these people, how to free each other, how to get back home. So when you say ignorant things like they wanted to be slaves because they didn't fight, those people fought to stay or to get back home. Those who made it over here, of course, they were overpowered. You can't do much when you're shackled from your hands and your feet and all kinds of different devices, on you. They usually did that mainly to the strong black man. They didn't really go after the women unless they were deemed trouble, because women would fight too. And then as time has gone on, that's why they started having overseers, because the plantation owners were in constant fear of their slaves taking over their plantation or running away, or they couldn't get them to cooperate. They had to so they hired people, which they called they would break them, and so that included torture, fear, all the things that you could think of that would break a person's soul. That's what they tried to do, so that these people were so weak, so afraid, that they would do what they were told. Now, that worked on some of them, yes, and we're not going to blame them for that. You were not in that situation. You don't know what they went through. You don't know, their mindsets had to be just in turmoil. But there were still others who didn't care how many times that you beat them or starved them or whatever. They were going to constantly continue to be defiant and try to get away. There were slaves who thought of ways to escape. They were constantly thinking of things to do to get away, because they were not happy and they were not like children, and they didn't feel like their slave masters. They wanted their slave masters to take care of them. These stories were not true. They did so many things. A man, he mailed himself to freedom. Took him 2 days inside of a box that he had he had help, and I believe it was like Pennsylvania. I forget where he mailed himself to, but the box was supposed to be fragile, and do not turn this box upside down, and they did, because of course the post office never gets anything right. So he did most of his ride on top of his head. He had to rig something in order for him to use the bathroom. He had a little bit of food, but because the man was so determined to be free, that's what he chose to do. And there were also so many other things that they did to get away. Let's not forget Nat Turner. He led a revolt to what his ideal was, to go from plantation to plantation and unalive the plantation owners' wives and children, and take the slaves, free the slaves. And as they go through, they get more and more, and they were headed to an auxiliary where they were going to get weapons, and then they would be on the same playing field. Because you have to remember, they didn't have weapons. They had weapons. The slave masters had weapons. They had tortured weapons. They had guns. The slaves didn't have any of those things. So you can't match what they were doing with nothing. So that was his ideal, to gather as many people, men, as possible, to fulfill this plan. Unfortunately, there were people who were afraid, and so, they had the right to be afraid, and so they turned him in and told about the plot, and that's why it didn't work, because they did make it to the auxiliary to get the ammunition, but they were already waiting for them because someone had tipped them off. But just for the simple fact that the man didn't care. They didn't care what their outcome was going to be. They wanted to be free. They wanted their families to be free. They were in constant fighting. They never sat down. They never gave up. The drive was so real. They would come up with all kinds of ideas. They would braid. So ladies, when you get braids in your hair, you might not really know the significance of that hairstyle. It's a beautiful hairstyle. The braids are beautiful and they look so regal, but they used to use hairstyles. The way they would braid their hair would tell them which way to go, or how to get over to the next place. That's how intelligent they were, and that's how determined that they were. They thought of everything. They would use rice and put it in their hair, and use that as to the steps, or which way, once you get to one place, how far you have to go to the next place. And we did have help, and I'm not going to take that away from the Caucasian people who believed in God and knew that this was not God's will, and he did help. But I would really love to stop hearing from our people, the other people, that slaves were weak. They wanted to be slaves. They didn't fight back. They just did what they were told, and bowed their heads and gave up their spirit. And that's not true. That is not true. If people are telling you things, I would hope that you would go research and find out the truth. Of course, they're not going to tell you the truth because they want you to believe that your people, our people, were weak, and that if it wasn't for another race helping them, or allowing them to live amongst them, if you want to call it that, they wouldn't have survived. First of all, don't pat yourself on the back about how you were instrumental in keeping them alive and allowing them to live amongst you. You did not want them to live amongst you, but you decided, since they're here, since you can't, there's laws which they really didn't care about the laws, that you would that you were allowing them to live there, but it was under circumstances. We don't want you on our side of town. We don't want you out at dark. We don't want you to mingle with our race. We're going to have you work our farms and pay you less, but we'll call you sharecroppers. But share evidently was not equal share. They had to drop some of the things that they were saying that were already proven to be untrue, especially about the part that we had no souls. We were not capable of learning all those things, because that was proven not to be true over and over. Slaves learned how to read in the dark of night under a candle. That's how determined they were. When they ran away, they never had schooling, but they were able to attend college. Frederick Douglass had no schooling, and I don't believe he knew how to read, but he was able to enroll in college and become a great attribute. He wrote letters, and he showed the way that he carried himself and the way that he expressed his words, showed the intelligence and the special talent that he had. There were so many black women and men who got into poetry and wrote books of poetry, and did all kinds of things. Of course, they would hide, not really push that out into the forefront, because if you have black people that are learning about this, then they would know all the things that you were telling them was a lie. You made it all up just to have their minds enslaved. You already have their bodies. You were trying to have their minds enslaved, because you can take the body, but if you can't take the mind, you do not have the person. The lives that they had to live. The one thing that I am so upset, I don't care what the other races say about our people, because we know what that's about. But for us to downgrade or to put misinformed information, or to make them shameful, or to make people think that they were weak and it was their fault that we were in the predicament that we were in, is horrible. It's not acceptable. There's no reason for it other than you don't like your own kind. If you're not a black person who loves your color, loves your skin, loves your people, and you don't feel like you fit in with black people, and they know what I'm saying, those people know what I'm saying, you're going to follow what they say about us, and some people of color do not hate the color that they're in. They hate the body that they're in, and you'll just have to pray for them, because what else can you do? Society has broken them and told them that you can't be anything, or you're not anything unless you're a certain race, and they believe that. They see Caucasians can basically walk through life freely. I mean, you can go, get different, some things are just a snap. They don't have to go through a rigmarole. They don't have to sign 9,000 pages of something and then tell you that it's not done right and redo it, and then they don't have to be told that you're only here because affirmative action and it's not fair because you're taking a good job away from a qualified white person, and so when you get beat down all the time and you feel like this is what they're saying is true, then that's how you start to feel about yourself. That's why it's important to go back and read your history. Don't let them tell you what your history was. They've lied to us from the beginning of time. They took our identity from the beginning of time. They try to erase our history, which they did from the beginning of time, just to make us feel like we weren't worthy and to cooperate. We were told that God said this is slavery is what He wanted, and that you were supposed to obey your masters. But they took scriptures and turned them around, because that was the only scripture that they didn't read anything before that. They didn't read anything after that. They didn't read anything around that. They focused on slaves, obey your masters. And that's basically what they heard when they were gathered on Sunday. And when you're sleep deprived and you're hungry and you're dehydrated, and they just took your husband and your baby away and sold them, you really don't have the power, you don't have the strength to get up and go on another day. So you have to make a decision that day, if I'm going to get up and go on, or if I'm going to lay down and give up, if I'm going to not take it anymore and I'm going to run off, and if I get caught, I will face the consequences. That was their dilemma. It wasn't how am I going to pay my light bill? My car note is coming up. I need those shoes. They lived real life. they lived a life of like no other. It wasn't really a life. It was a survival. It was surviving. You had to survive, especially when you are forced to bring children into the world, and no matter who that father was, could have been the overseer, could have been the plantation owner, and even though you looked at them with hate, and I know God would forgive you for that, that baby came from you, and so you still had to love and take care of that baby. That baby was yours, and so you were fighting for you and your child that you were forced to have, but you never blamed the child or neglected the child because of how they got here. They were in the same predicament that you were, and even if you looked down at that child and you could not see any part of you, you still had to be that child's mother. So I get very upset when they try to downplay the circumstances of our people, when they try to make them sound like they were weak, and they deserved to be, they should have fought back, and they should have did whatever it took not to be captured. And people don't you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what they went through. You don't know. I don't want to hear. If it was me, I would. If it was you, you would have been beaten, shackled, and taken over to be a slave. What gave you what kind of superpower did you have that would allow you to fight 900 men with mullets, or with bombs, or whatever? What superpowers did you have? People just need to stop the slandering and spreading the lies, especially if you're of color, and just recognize that you're here, you're able to do a lot of things because of your ancestors, because of the people that came before you, and what you chose to do with those freedoms that came off of the backs of our black ancestors. Some are deplorable. Some people say, well, slavery wasn't that bad. The pictures that they show, the stories that they tell, it wasn't all that bad. It was just a business. They were just using them to make money, and that was it. They weren't really treating them bad. It was just all about business. I don't know if this is where you're getting this from, or you're conflicted. Maybe you have some people in your family are Caucasian. I don't know, but I don't care. The truth of the matter is, they took a group of people from their home. They took people that were already here, because this was their home. And they decided that they weren't worth anything but to build up America, to build up, to take care of them, to raise their children, to cook their food, to sew their clothes, to just everything. A slave master, and the wife really didn't have anything to do. She could drink tea and crumpets all day long and entertain her friends on the porch and laugh and joke while they have servants running back and forth to make sure that they stay cool and they have cool drinks. And then they'll have someone over to make sure that their kids are taken care of. They lived a great life, and they didn't want to give that up. Some people say, well, the people that were closest to them, they could have did things to them, like put things in their food, or poison or whatever. There are stories about that too. But you have to understand, Africans were believed in God too. Even though they wanted to tell us that they saved black people's lives by introducing them to Christianity. And that's not true. Not true at all. They introduced us to the made up Christianity that they were putting out there. That was lies, and but the black people already knew the truth. They knew God's truth. So that's what they held on to. So when you heard them singing in the fields, they weren't singing to the God of the Caucasian. They weren't singing to that made up God that they told them that he wanted us to be slaves and to work for the master, and because they wanted to actually say, what they were saying was Noah's sons, Ham, Seth, and Jacob, all three of them represented a different part of the area in Africa. And so because of the curse that Ham's seen his father naked, and he was supposed to cover him and whatever, and he didn't do that, that his fourth son was cursed to be a servant. Him and his lineage were to be a servant to his brother's lineage. It did not say to be slaves to the world. They were to serve their brother's lineage, and that was it. And it wasn't even Ham's curse. He didn't curse Ham, but that's what they like to use. Ham was black, and he was cursed, and that's why there was slavery. But that is, I don't want to get into it. They were three brothers who came from the same family. They had the same mother and the same father. Man decided to say the reason why we have different races is because they split up the races, and Ham was black, and then Asian was Seth or Japheth. I don't know, but this is their story that they cut, and it's not true. Absolutely not true. So you can forget the story of it's, you know, they just wanted anything bad had to be black. And if you read in the Bible, there's never black, white mentioned in the Bible. There's no race mentioned in the Bible. When they talk about color, they talk about the darker olive color, and things like that. They never say any color. They don't say white people. They don't say black people. They don't say Asian. They don't say any of that. That's not even in the Bible. If you really want to know the truth, if you read the birth of Noah, when his father first laid eyes on him when he was born, he was petrified. He didn't look like any other child that was born before him. He ran to find his father, Enoch, because he was confused. He didn't know why his son looked like this. And he went to Enoch, and he was like, what is going on? My son his skin is pale, his hair is bushy, is white, his eyes are sparkling with color. Now, if he was petrified because he's looking at a baby who has white skin and different features than all the other people that were born, that would let you know that the people that were born before had dark skin. And now they're concerned because here is this baby with red and white, and he didn't look like the rest of the kids. And Enoch explained to him that God was doing something different. Now, they never said that Noah was white. They said they described his features, and they also said his hair was white like wool, white, just plain white. And if you read in the history of African people, the most albino people are in Africa. They have the greatest amount of albino people. You can take that as however you want. Of course, we do now have different color of races now, but we really don't know how that happened. How God made that happen, and we really don't have to sit and speculate why he changed the dynamics, because there's no ifs and ands about it. The people who were first here were dark-skinned people. So he knows what he's doing. God doesn't make mistakes. He knows how what his plan is and what he chose to do. We might not know. He doesn't have to tell us everything, because we don't need to know everything. We don't need to know. You would be a nervous wreck. You would get things wrong. We don't need to know why we can stand a circle in the atmosphere and not the gravity pull us down. We don't have to know all that, because then we'd be nervous every day, like, you know, are we going to fall into an abyss? God knows you have enough to worry about trying to save your soul. He knows you have enough of trying to fight the demons, trying to fight yourself, trying to fight against your flesh. He doesn't want to add extra things that doesn't even really have anything to do with you. Because if it did, he would tell you. God did tell you that the wars that we are going to have will be spiritual wars. He did not say we are going to have race wars. He did not say Aryan Nation and KKK were going to go up against people of color. That's not in the Bible. It's the war of the spiritual. God made a promise. God doesn't break his promises. God will return the land that belongs to the people back to them. And that's what's going to happen. That there's no ifs, ands about it. And if America chooses, or any other country chooses, to place themselves in that war, they will be handled too. It depends on what side that they are going after, or what side they are standing up for. Israel, Iran have been fighting since the beginning of time. They both take ownership of the land, but they know what God said. They know God said who the land belonged to. So if that's what he says, can't nobody change that. And so you can go and make claim and try to bully your way into taking people's things, which that happens all the time. But God is not. He is not going to. He had that mission. He told the people that he was going to return their land to them. And that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. We're going to have other little wars because we're having them now. It all basically has to do with people claiming land. And then America's wars are what benefits America if they're on the side of the people that have the resources that we need to maintain our country. That is going to be the side that they're on. America has been considered the #1 nation for years because we were never touched. We had missiles and airplanes and all kinds of things that made us look like our country was strong and nobody could penetrate into it. Well, that changed on 9/11. I'm not going to talk about that, but it changed on 9/11, and then people were fearful. This has never happened. They've touched American soil, so nobody's safe. We're not the number one nation. We're just like them. They can come after us whenever they want to. And it's not just the foreigners. We, as Americans, are in a war with each other. If we don't like something, another group of people in America will attack that group because we have freedom of speech. And when you use your freedom of speech, you're usually putting one group of people down, and they don't like it, so they go one further, go one better. Right now, there's a war. I won't go as far as to call it a war right now, but people are upset and doing things with different things that are going on. ISIS, the death of the other man, people who are against other people who feel they have the right to be who they are, and anyone who goes up against that, they have a problem with. People that get up and say things, they're not wrong. If you read the Bible, it's in there. You don't have to push it, or you don't have to make speeches and say how these people are whatever. It's in the Bible. I'm sure they can read. I'm sure the world knows all the things, because back in the day, we were following God's law to the T, whether you believe it or not. We were following God's law to the T. Now we have all these different things where people have the right to be who they want to be. People have the right to protest or go against something that they don't feel is fair, or goes against what they believe in. And so that's why we have all this conflict. That people who are who are Christians, that are still going by the Bible, knows that what it says in the Bible contradicts what people are saying about how they get to choose their life. The life that God gave them, that they would not have if He had not breathed into them that life. That they want to be heard or seen. But if we didn't take so much time focusing on what other people's faults or whatever, and focus on getting our lives together and working on what God is telling us to do, and you wouldn't have time to fight. Why argue and fight with people? They're strong in their belief, you're strong in your belief, and nobody's going to turn neither side. There are some people that I've heard of, some people that believe and are asking God to turn them to make them back the way that they were born. But if you find a person who strongly believes in something, it's going to end up in violence, because you're not going to be able to tell them anything, and then when people are heated, things come out of their mouth that that are critical and may make that person react violently. So God didn't want people to argue and fight about sin. He didn't want you to get in debates and criticize about his law. He wanted you to read the Bible and follow the Bible the way you see it. But if you see someone else who's not following the Bible, that doesn't have anything to do with you. Because like I said, God is going to judge people separately. He's going to take care of those people. You don't have to worry about those people. You don't have to worry about trying to change those people, because that's not what he asked you to do. You don't have to worry about going around and telling them you're going to burn and God's going to punish you. And you don't have, that's not your duty. That is not your job. You don't know, people tend to take the worst sin that they feel is the worst sin and put that in the forefront. That's horrible. You're going to burn, and but God said all sin is the same. He's not separating any sin, small or large. He did not say, there will be some sacrifices for certain things, because he mentions false prophets. If you lead people astray and take them away from the word, yeah, you're going to have some extras, but you're going to have you're going to answer for those things. There's some other things, but other than that, if you have done something horrible and society has thrown you away, society has told you you're a monster, you don't deserve to live out in with the rest of the people, you're going to be confined for the rest of your life, you will never get out of here except in a pine box. If that person seriously decided to search out the word and to follow God and to turn from his sins and to repent, there's nothing you can do, because God will forgive all sins if you come to him and you're sincere. You turn away from that sin and you change your life. He's willing to forgive you. We're the ones who say you're not worth. You're trash. You're not redeemable. You need to be put to death, or you need to not be on this earth. Those still aren't your decisions. So if you could focus on the only things that he has asked you to do, Nothing extra. You don't get extra points. You're not getting extra homework points if you go beyond, because he didn't ask you to go beyond. You can't go beyond because it's not your job. Sometimes it sounds really, really unfair that people live their lives, all their lives, as a good person, does what the Lord says, is kind to people, feed people who have no food, and all that, and to hear that a person who lived his life as a criminal and caused harm to many of people and many of families, all they have to do is repent and they can be forgiven. That makes other people upset. But that's God, because he said he loves everyone. He knows that we were born into sin already. We didn't have a chance to live in glory. We never made it to the Garden of Eden. We never made it to all the fabulous things that were in store for us. We were born into sin. And when sin is growing and growing and growing, it infests itself into people, and it makes people worse, and just decide evil is fun. They're told that, they can become something greater than what they are if they're doing certain things that are against God. We sit and we look and we see see these people with all the riches and gold, even the power and all that thing there, and we think, why are we on this side? Why are we like paupers? Why are we poor? Why are we suffering? And because God wants you to know that his love doesn't have anything to do with making you to stand out and to be powerful over other people and to be the richest person on earth and to be able to do whatever you want, because he doesn't claim the earth. Actually, the devil rules this place. God always talks about going back and making a home for us in heaven. He doesn't mention this place. When he mentions this place, it's going to be destroyed. This is an evil place. This is where all the evil happened. This is where all the pain happened, the suffering, everything happened right here on earth. And so he does not use this as to uplift anything. So if you have money and you have power, that didn't come from God. I mean, he does bless you, but he blesses you in the ways that he says in the Bible. I didn't read anything in the Bible where it says if you become the biggest rapper and make all the money and have all the power and all the women and continue to make babies, because I don't read any of that in the Bible. I don't read any of that. So yes, you can live here on earth for the time that you're here, and if you rather be somebody here, or what you consider somebody, if you want people to uplift you and praise you and almost treat you like an idol, or make you feel like you're special, you're above everyone else, and that's what you want, and you waived your options. Do I want to be famous here and have all the money and power and do what I want, be able to buy what I want, be able to use people, be able to do things that are evil? Because when you have a whole bunch of money and you've been able to do everything else, there's nothing else but to turn to evil. Let's see how far my money will get me. What can I do? And you can do a lot. You can do a lot. And so if you've chosen that over having eternal riches, having health, having no pain, no thought of sadness, no depression, no memory of being molested, no memory of being kidnapped and tortured and SA'd by 12 men, no memory of seeing your buddies gunned down in the street and holding them until they took their last breath. If you want to choose this life, God's not going to stop you. Go ahead and choose it. Go ahead and have the time of your life for the time that you have left. Because when Jesus comes back, he had made a promise. He's coming back for the people who are asleep in him, and that means they went to, they passed away serving the Lord. They passed away. They went to sleep in God, in Jesus. And for the people that are still here, and they are still worshiping Jesus. They're still doing his will. You will get to see those people be risen and taken to the place that they've been longing for, that they know that it's all over, that this they don't have to see this evil place anymore. They don't have to be around this evilness, this evil entity. They don't have to have Satan constantly trying to get them on his side. They don't have to see it. There are going to be so many smiles and tears and joy and screaming. Just thank God Jesus is back. We're here. We're saved. But unfortunately, if you chose this world, it's going to be a different outcome for you. You might scream, but it's not going to be screaming because of the happiness. You might cry, but it's not going to be tears of joy. You really need to decide what life is for. What is more important? To live forever in peace and comfort and loving everyone, loving, and no more pain, and no more bullying, and no more starving, and no more diseases, and no more just no more. Whatever evil that is here, it doesn't get to go to heaven. It gets forgotten. It stays here. When everything is destroyed, materialistic things, houses that are beautiful, $20 million houses, companies that make a lot of money, when it's all destroyed, all the memories, all the hate, all the deception, all the evil, all the power is going to stay right here with it, and it's going to be eliminated. I get passionate when people talk about my ancestors. Your ancestors not only shed their blood, they jeopardized their lives. They didn't care. If I'm going to be free, my brother's going to be free. My sister's going to be free. My neighbor's going to be free. I'm going to make sure that they get a taste of freedom to know what it is, because they were free. They should have been free all along. I'm not going to free myself and go on with my life. I can't be free inside unless all my people are free. I don't think that works for today, to this day. If I'm going to make it, I'm going to make it. I don't care who else makes it. I don't care to go back and help someone, and that's not everybody. Majority. I'm not going to go back and free the others. Let them free themselves. And if that's how you want to be that. But don't take the legacy of our ancestors, who were the strongest people on the planet, who deserve to be honored every day, who deserve to be praised. Don't ever downgrade, disrespect, or make what they did mean nothing. And if you don't know, and you're just listening to people, have you ever met somebody? I had a friend that people would tell her stuff and she just would repeat it. She would never go and find out if it's true or not. She would just repeat it. And that's how false information and all that stuff gets around, because you listen to the person that they didn't research. They just heard it from someone else, and now they're telling it to you, and you're researching it, not researching it and telling it to someone else, and it just goes on and on and on. Then you get all these different stories, and black people put their own selves in slavery. They wanted to be in slavery, and it's just ridiculous. It's painful. It's disrespectful. If you don't have anything good to say about your own people, don't talk about them. Talk about the people that you admire. Talk about the people that you feel are worthy. But don't talk down. on the ancestors who were hung for no reason, who could just be walking down the street trying to get home to their families, and a group of people decided that they wanted to kidnap him and do things to him while they sat on the lawn and had lunch. Don't degrade the black woman who all she was doing was returning the laundry that she had that she had done for the lady down the street. And she was kidnapped and violated, and no one ever was charged because intimidation, or because they felt our black women were loose and that's what they wanted. Even our black little children. Don't disrespect the black people who were last seen driving somewhere and has never been seen never seen after, because our lives are not worth anything. Our lives were not worth anything. So if you feel that your own race is not a credit to the world, go ahead and praise the race that you feel it and leave that alone. I truly believe in my heart that there's a lot of people who love the skin that they're in, that they love their ancestors, that they believe in, that they were strong and they were warriors. They came from a place that taught them who they were, taught them that they are strong, that they are people of purpose, and they carry that with them. They had to learn because this was a new place, and they really didn't know the ins and outs or the language, but it didn't take them long to realize what they're in and how they were going to get out. Don't disrespect them. Do not disrespect them. So that's what I wanted to discuss today, because I'm tired of hearing things about, it's almost like people are blaming black people for slavery. And that they really wish that they could bring it back. And that's probably what they look at us. You see somebody walking down the street, and that's what they probably wish in their mind. Wish I could have you as a maid. I wish that I could have you drive me around. I wish that you could build, that's probably what goes through their mind. And it makes them upset when they see a nice, young, tall, black man who has his shoulders up, his head, his eyes straight ahead, with pride, carrying his briefcase, going to his office on the 72nd floor. It upsets them. And then here they go with the rhetoric that black people cause all the problems, that black people cause all the crime, that black people don't care about anything. They will take what's yours. They're demons. They're menace to society. They're nothing. And then, unfortunately, we prove them. Some of us prove that that's right. Also, that we had made our 90th upload yesterday. So we're at 90. This will be 91. So we will have 9 uploads left before we get to our cash giveaway. I hope that you've been listening to the uploads. And I truly appreciate all of you. I hope that someone is getting something out of whatever upload that I do. And just keep holding on and keep striving for the best, and don't let anyone knock you down. And if they try to knock you down, if they do knock you down, get back up. Do it again. Let them know you can't stop me. I come from a line of people of power. I come from a line of people who didn't need to go to college to learn how to draw structures and to build things and to make things work. We used our minds that we already had. There's a lot more I could say. Maybe one day I'll say some more. But right now, that's all I had to talk about. I hope you have a blessed day. Do something good for someone. Make someone feel that they're worthy. Praise someone who's doing something for the community. Instead of, no, you didn't do that right. Why? Praise someone who is trying to do something for the community, that are trying to take our little boys and little girls and teach them differently. Let them know that they have a reason to be full of pride. And until next time.